Make Vanish Into You a single right now, that's got your Grammy.
Hello, you are tuned in with Big Pink Energy. Who is me? Maybe you're here for a chat about pop culture, music news or gossip, or maybe you're here because secretly you are in love with me. I'm joined today by Colton, who is an absolute icon. We love Colton. You've definitely seen Colton all over the timeline, whether it's MAYHEM outfits or thoughts, opinions. I love seeing Colton on my timeline. Just, again, a lot of the guests I've had on this show have all been just like people that I think online have quite good energy. And I would definitely say Colton's part of that. So yeah, really excited to have you join us today. We've got matching hoodies, different eras, but you know, same spirit. And I love that for us.
Yes.
How have you been enjoying the past few months being a Gaga fan? I feel like I keep thinking she's finished feeding us and then she just goes, here's something else for you to eat.
You know, this era has just been so just full of surprises. Like you said, I would think that by this time, you know, after going all over the globe and playing those huge shows in Australia, that she would try to get some sleep at least. But no, I mean, I'm ready for anything. I'm so excited about the Harlequin special that's coming out sometime soon. The Rolling Stone interview that just came out a couple days ago. I love that. Yeah, it's just been like it's been so much fun.
It really has. It feels like she's connected with us more than ever. But I think I've spoken about this before, but like connected with us in a way that feels on her terms, that doesn't feel like kind of she's having to compromise any kind of boundaries that she's put in over time. You know, obviously becoming as famous as she is so can be quite dangerous. And I think we as fans definitely noticed like there was a bit of a boundary there for a while compared to how she used to be. It feels like she's worked her way back towards how we used to be without kind of compromising her own comfort and space.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you know, you can definitely tell. And I actually got to give her a letter this year on tour, and I wrote a little bit about that in my letter, just how you can see it all on her face. You know what I mean? It's very much a different Gaga in the respect that I feel like that control that's being exhibited on the outside is coming from the inside. I can only speculate that, you know, in years past, like this residency and Joanne, probably about when Joanne started, you started to see her become a product of her own creation, and she was all of a sudden more guarded and put away, and you know, all of a sudden she's not as accessible to her team and her dancers who are really her only like lifeline at that point. You know what I mean? Especially being on tour for so long, you want to have some normalcy. You want to be able to just catch up with someone while you're warming up. You know what I mean? And having that like taken from her, you could see the damage. You know what I mean? You could see that
Yeah.
she wasn't happy. So, you
Yeah.
know, by the time we got to Chromatica, like beginning of Chromatica versus end of Chromatica, that two different people. You know what I mean? And then to see that she finally is just like, yep, this is what I need. This is what I don't need. These are the people that I want to work with. This is the energy that I don't want to work with. It's just so refreshing. Like I'm so ready for whatever she decides to throw at us.
Literally, I couldn't agree more with you. I think it's so interesting that you bring up Joanne, and this is something I've definitely talked about before, but I feel like I'll be talking about forever, is just how different that album and that era felt for us as fans. And I think part of what you mentioned there with her sort of becoming a product of her own making, I think that's so interesting because I think that ties a lot with what I've been thinking for a while, is that with Joanne came with that sort of this is my serious music persona, but
Mm-hmm.
also came I'm a serious actress persona. And all of that at once meant that, as you say, she was quite kind of detached from us in a way that compared to art pop, where, you know, she had littlemonsters.com and she was chatting with us and she was tweeting us and she was bringing us on stage and bringing us backstage and doing everything. That was very different. And I think all of that was kind of built by what was happening at the time and was all kind of moving in that direction. And like you say, having sort of watching her taking all of that back, and being all of those things at once. I think that's something else she used to struggle with, was being one thing at a time.
Hmm.
You know, she was in her serious musician persona in Joanne, and then she was the serious actress, and then
Hmm.
she was doing another acting project, and then she did an album, and then and she was very in that at one time. I think Mayhem is the first we've seen her actually be all of those things at once and be excellent at all of them. She is a jazz singer, she is an actress. Whether you like Joker or not, we can agree her acting in the film was good.
Me personally, I loved it. I don't understand the hate, but that's just me. I think that people that didn't like Joker didn't see the first one, and I'm gonna die on that hill
Mm,
because the story it it's so cohesive. She belongs in that
yeah.
world, and the role that she plays within that, what, 2.5 hours, it makes sense in, in the canon.
It was heading that way, right? Like, I don't think the Joker who was building up in the first movie isn't a Joker who in the second movie could be a competent supervillain. That that was quite obvious to me as well. I thought that. And so to see like the shock kind of being, why isn't it him like kind of achieving world domination? Because he's not competent.
No, absolutely
He's
not.
cuckoo.
And the other thing is too is that if anything, I mean, she would be the one to be pulling the strings, Harlequin, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, she just at one point she just looks at him in the face and is like, "No, I never cared about you. Actually, I'm gonna go. You have fun with this. I'll see you." Like that's heartbreaking in itself, you know. So
Say what you will about that movie, her acting was the best part of it, I think. But the music we got from it, Harlequin, the album, I can see you've got a big poster behind you. I am so here for everybody who connected with Harlequin because I do feel like it's one of those projects that she released probably thinking, only like a sort of subsection of my fans are going to like this. And I think actually we can all agree it's just really enjoyable to listen to, whether you're like a fan of the jazz stuff or not. Like to see her just thrive and belt out those songs. And we've got the covers on there, which are really great, but then to also have two original songs. I think Folia De is an underrated track. I know everybody loves Happy Mistake, but I don't see enough people talking about Folia De. I think that's an
yes,
excellent, excellent song. I'm excited for you know, like the Grammys campaign that is just unfolding before us at the moment. It's a big thing. I had a few requests to talk about in this episode, so we definitely need to discuss. But yeah, all the praise for Harlequin.
yes.
Absolutely adoring seeing it everywhere. What do you have like a favorite track on Harlequin or a favorite moment from her?
I so That's Life. That's probably my favorite track of the whole album because first of all, I ate that up when it came out, and I didn't put together that it was like the ending credits song that they used in Joker 1. So when I went back and started piecing everything together, it made me love it even more. But I've always been a huge, jazz truther, jazz baby, since even before Cheek to Cheek, when she started going that way, and to kind of tie some of your points back about art pop and all of that stuff, with the control, it's the domino effect because you had this thing where all of a sudden she puts out art pop, and she's, her fan base obviously loves it. We loved it. And then that became, okay, well, when are we going to get Act Two? Still, 10, 15 years later, people are asking for Act Two. So then you have people trying to put her in that box. And then she goes the other way and tries to educate about jazz. And I actually went to the Tony Bennett Cheek to Cheek Live uh, tour, and I will
Oh
tell you,
wow.
it was so different, and not just for the show element. I mean, to be actively a part of those two audiences, Tony's audience, who are 50s and up, they're wearing nice polos, to this outdoor show, and then people like me who would show up and they would just be in full Gaga regalia. You know what I mean? It was a very interesting time to see that sort of thing, being bridged. And by the time you get to, like you said, Joker, A Star is Born, House of Gucci, where she's trying to get into all of these, more serious roles, she's already tried to establish herself in these different facets. So by the time we got to Harlequin, and you've got LG7 on its way, you have Joker coming out, this was the first time really we've ever seen her, you know, put this hat on, take it off, put another one on at the same time, take that one off, then Die with a Smile is doing really great. And I've always been a huge fan. So yeah, when Harlequin finally came out, I just knew it was time. I was ready for her to do something without Tony. You know what I mean? And not that I don't need Tony or anything like that, but I was really, really worried that after he passed, that this was going to become an element of her career that would take more of a backseat, for obvious
Yeah.
reasons.
It's amazing to see her still kind of doing jazz, doing it her way. I don't know if you watched the Zane Lowe interview she did a few days ago, but she did briefly mention sort of Harlequin being her first jazz project without Tony. And I
Yeah.
remember, I think when it first came out, she was saying, oh, I've done a few things on this album that I think he wouldn't actually like. But in that interview she did a few days ago, she said what she loved about Tony was that even if she thought he wouldn't like something, he would actually end up being really fascinated by it or being really lovely by it, when she was kind of thinking, oh, he's going to hate this.
I think he
So
would have
it's
loved World on a
interesting.
String.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So that's my favorite of the covers is World on a String. I think
Yeah.
listening to her sing that feels like she was born to cover that
Oh,
song.
yeah.
There's some songs that she don't know about this one, baby. Love you, but don't know about this. And then there's some that she covers, and I'm like, you were born to sing that. Like,
Yeah.
and World on a String is one of those.
The Joker as well. I that as a
Yes.
theater person. So I don't know if you know much of the history about that song in particular, but that song actually comes from a musical from the 40s. I forget the
Oh,
name of the
wow.
musical, but yeah, it goes all the way back to that. So when I found that out and, started seeing how she was piecing that together, it just makes so much sense. You know what I mean? You were talking about some of the lesser tracks. I'm not particularly a fan of Smile. I've never been a fan of that song, no matter who covers it, whether it's Michael Jackson or her. You know what I mean?
You know what, with Smile, I was quite disappointed because she sang that obviously for the COVID special that she organised. And she added this cute little ad lib onto it that she doesn't do in Harlequin. And I was like, it needed just a little bit of that whimsy or a little bit of that sort of sweetness, I think. I preferred her version of it when she was trying to do like a make the world happy and smile through COVID than I did sort of the Harlequin Smile, which seemed almost kind of quite melancholy and reflective almost. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I preferred that version. So Smile is also on my list of ones that I connected with a bit less on
Mhm.
Harlequin, I would say. Yeah.
Because my boyfriend and I, we listened to the album when it dropped together, and I call him a newer monster. He says I've been here, but no, baby, you haven't been here. So when we finally listened to it and he finally got into the jazz, it's literally his favorite album, like over anything that she's
Really?
done. Yeah. Uh-huh. So she gets a lot of play
Oh,
in our house. We got a couple copies. So
yeah, I can see that. Oh, no, it really is an amazing album. I think you're right as well. That's Life is definitely a highlight on the album for me. I listen to that sometimes when I'm feeling a bit kind of sad or pissed off and I just need a bit of like a recentering of,
yes, yes.
that's
That I
life.
love that they used it for the credits in the second movie. Because I went and saw,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm a Joker 2 stan. I am a truther. So, we saw it a couple times, and I can't tell you how just it made my heart pound to hear that just blaring through the theater as we were walking out. You know what I mean? And it really just
Mm,
kind of has that energy. I mean, I won't give away the end of the movie if you haven't seen it, for those who haven't seen it, but it doesn't really end on a great note. You know what I mean? And it's just
mm,
kind of like you just kind
yeah.
of walk out of the theater like, well, that's life,
Yeah.
you know? So,
I think that is the perfect song for the end credits as well. Out of everything on Harlequin, I think that you're right. It hits the note completely. It gives you the feeling you need to give walking out of the cinema and like reflecting on what you've seen. I think that's the song that does the best job of that.
the other one that strong vocals and stuff is if my friends could see me now, love
Mm,
what she did with that. And
I
then
love
it
that
was
one.
amplified by the soundtrack version. I love that version too.
My favorites, other than what we've already spoken about, would be That's Entertainment. It's
Mhm.
so camp. I love it. Me and one of my friends have a bit of a joke that like the verses, you could literally just pick two things that rhyme and just put it in.
No, literally. I love it so much.
Like it's so crazy and ridiculous. It builds into just nonsense and I love it.
I know, and it's such the track selection for this too, besides what was already interwoven into Joker 2, it just makes so much sense for who she is as well. You know what I mean? Talking about
Mm.
the person underneath the character. I could see her doing any of these songs in a jazz show. I could see her, you know, I could see Harlequin also doing these in, in some sort of fashion. You know what I mean? So I love that this project speaks true to her and also to what needed to be served.
Absolutely. I wonder when she brings the jazz shows back if we'll get any of Harlequin. I think she realizes now that there's more appreciation for it within the fan base than maybe she thought at first. And critical reception too, of course. It's Grammy nominated now. I would love to see some of those songs on her set list. I know she kind of does more of those sort of Great American Songbook kind of choices, but I think there's room for a couple of them in the show.
What do you think about this? Because I feel like this has been my one complaint of the Mayhem Ball thus far. Well, I have two, but I'll get into that later.
Mm-hmm.
The first being, why don't we have Happy Mistake on the set list somewhere? It makes so much sense to go into the shallow Million Reasons part of the show.
You could swap Million Reasons with Happy Mistake, actually, when you think about it, right?
Would, you know what I mean?
Look, I've not been quiet about it. I struggle with Joanne and I struggle with Million Reasons the most.
Is it the canceled
So
tour
any
trauma?
any suggestions? Yeah, any suggestions, any sort of point about axing that song from the show, I'm here for. But listen, I appreciate what it does in the set list. I appreciate that it does move the story forward. And I do like that she's given us a fresh version of Million Reasons that kind of gives the song a new meaning. I do like that. I agree with you, Happy Mistake is much more kind of fitting. It's something I would rather hear than Million Reasons. I wonder if maybe she left it out because she feels that, she's already playing nearly all of the songs on Mayhem, all the album tracks. I wonder if she feels that she needs more of those like well-known songs, the Million Reasons, the Shallows, the Die With a Smiles, to kind of offset that sort of super fan dream set list kind of vibe, and she feels that Happy Mistake maybe would have been too niche. I think it would have been nice to hear, and I'm actually surprised she hasn't done it as like a surprise piano song, because I do think if it's not part of the permanent set list, it would be perfect there, right? To even just do as like a surprise here or there, more so than the Edge of Glory at
Yeah,
least.
I thought
Yeah.
so. Look, I love her. I love her down, but Joanne World Tour. Then I went for Enigma, and she did the studio version. I'm very blessed. Then she did it again for Chromatica. Like, okay, I have lived on the edge of glory for about 10 years now. I'm ready to jump off. I am. I am. So I was very happy when I went to night one of the Mayhem Ball and she did hair, bawled my eyes out. I'm forever thankful.
I think listen, I've been very blessed. I saw the Mayhem show 6 times this year. I think half of my shows had the Edge of Glory.
And it's a good one. It's always going to pull them out of the bathroom or the merch lines. However, the Beast took me there, to the bathrooms and the merch lines.
Oh,
When I went night one, right, it's a different song from the stands. And that's how I feel about it. Because then when I went back
right,
night two and it was right there, it's like one of my favorite songs. I really hope that, I don't know
right.
if you saw it online, I think it's an AI, like The Weeknd
Oh, the
and,
Weeknd mashup?
yeah, the one, The Beast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Oh, I hope that would be so good. That would be great.
That would be
He
amazing.
belongs on that song. But
But the current version we have, however, you know what I also saw a while ago? Someone made a mashup of The Beast and Monster, and they kept the vocals of The Beast with the instrumental of Monster. And hearing that recontextualized the whole thing for me. And I was like, actually, I am kind of disappointed that the version we got is kind of so. I feel like I just would have connected with it more if it was more kind of dark pop and less more of that kind of. It really slows down the pace of the show, I feel. And Million Reasons and Shallow obviously does as well, but it feels like it takes the show in a different direction, whereas The Beast feels kind of like you've had all this adrenaline from like Alejandro, Love Game, all of these like hits that she's doing in that amazing outfit. And then you get The Beast, and it's a bit of like okay, and I don't know. It's just look, it's just not my favorite, but that's fine. We all have different opinions for a reason. I think you're right though. The Weeknd mashup, that would be cool. That would be cool.
Verse one, chorus one. for Coachella. Like that was perfect. That worked.
That's, yeah, you're so right. That's what we can give her. And there it is.
Hey, that's my truth. I'm sticking to it.
And there it is. That's the tea. Something else on the Apple Music interview. I took notes when I listened to that because I knew I'd be discussing it on the podcast. And I was like, I want to be prepared. So something really cool while we're talking about The Edge of Glory that I thought she spoke about in the interview was how Born This Way was such, like, revisiting those songs on tour has been quite impactful for her and how she sees them now. And I thought it was so interesting that she brought that up, considering that the first interview she did with Zane Lowe at the beginning of the era was obviously going back to her roots in New York, literally going to one of the bars she used to visit before she was famous, and then singing these songs on tour. She said that, this is actually from the Rolling Stone interview she did about her favourite songs. She said the Fame, the album, was more of like a dream, and she was like manifesting that for herself. Whereas Born This Way was about a specific time she was living in her life and looking back. And then in the Zane Lowe interview, she spoke a lot about that music being so to do with New York. She mentioned reconnecting with Lady Starlight on tour as well. I find it so interesting that Born This Way is the album she made on tour, and she's mentioned making new music on this tour. I think there is some kind of link there because Born This Way was inspired by the fans, right? It was inspired by us going out on tour, performing for us, seeing us in the front row, taking us backstage, whatever else. That inspired Born This Way. And obviously, you know, she will always be a creative, but she was most inspired, I think, on the Monster Ball tour, writing Born This Way. I think you could tell that Born This Way Ball tour literally broke her body. Art Rave, she was exhausted. Joanne, again, another one that had to end early because of illness. Chromatica, I don't think we realised until later on that she actually was so inspired by that tour. I think it's a really positive thing to hear that she's so creatively switched on and inspired right now, being on tour for Mayhem. And it makes me really excited that it feels like we haven't had I'm making an album on tour album since Born This Way. Do you feel like there's greatness around the corner or in the air?
I mean, to tie some of these points together about her working on music in in hotel studios and on the bus and things like that. And she talks about in the Rolling Stone interview a lot about Springsteen, and you think of Springsteen and it's that sort of like classic rock feel, but it has grit to it. And I am personally, I mean, Born This Way is my favorite album because I'm from the Midwest. I've got a dive bar on every corner of my town. So that's kind of the background that I come from. And my parents were listening to Springsteen, and, to have then those influences on me with, then you add Gaga into the mix and, with her, like the Goo Goo Dolls and all these, more pop elements. It just makes so much sense that, when she was on tour forever for the Monster Ball, it's that same type of like Springsteen energy that went into it. The travel, all of those things. I honestly thought that we would have gotten that around the time of Joanne World Tour, because if you remember, she was posting all the time about, like different truck stops that she would be at, or, different things that were happening on the road. And it felt like a window into what was going on with her at the time. So to hear that she's kind of like hitting her roots that way again with what we've already got on Mayhem, I think it's going to go, I don't want to say it's going to be any type of genre, but if I have any inkling, I think it's going to have a lot of grit to it.
I think that's accurate. I think that's a good prediction.
Yeah, I think not only will it have the grit, but it's going to have the vulnerability that Born This Way really didn't have, because she spent, forget what interview she said this in, but she was like, I wish I could tell that girl to just relax, to stop fighting. You know what I mean? And I think that you could definitely feel that in Born This Way with songs like Highway Unicorn and The Queen and Bad Kids, where she's like trying to prove something. And now, I mean, 7 albums in, however many tours in, it's the same type of food, but different recipe,
I think whatever she's cooking up, I'm hungry.
Me too.
Can we get a plate? Like,
I'm just saying, put some tinfoil over it.
Whenever you're ready.
Look, I brought to-go bags. No, I'm just kidding.
My goodness. Something that I noted down that she said during that interview as well, which she was talking about Born This Way, was how music was always how she processed whatever she was going through at the time. Not necessarily like therapy, but I think just a way for her to kind of, process in her head what she was going through. Born This Way was like going back in time, yearning for an understanding of herself. And that's why it feels like she was looking back at that very New York time of her life. She mentioned that the other Zane Lowe interview they did in that dive bar was so special for that reason. She also mentioned performing Brooklyn Nights in Australia and how what she found so interesting was how the meaning of that song has changed for her over time. I mean, we know as fans, because we were there, who that
Right.
song was about. And, he's, thank God, not in the picture anymore.
I just have to say, there was speculation online the other day about her performing it on his birth. Let it go, y'all. Please. The meaning of the song has changed.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
And the thing is, her engagement ring is fucking huge.
I mean, I could refinance my house a couple times. I'm just saying.
I agree with you. I think that's kind of crazy to think that on stage in front of the biggest audience she's ever performed for as a headline show, well, I might be mixing up the Australia shows, but one of the biggest audiences she's performed for as a headline solo artist in her career. In front of that many people, she wants to make a subliminal call out to her ex from years ago when she's engaged. I don't
Pretend
see
I didn't
it,
hear that.
personally. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. So, yeah, I think that's a bit nuts.
It's this thing of, I've seen it a lot online where because she's so back with us in this era that I think that people are expecting, old patterns to start coming up and things like that and wanting to relive things like, for example, Act Two. We're for anyone to have any evolution, you've got to move on from those things. I'm so glad that when she did the Little Monsters press conference, that she literally just said they weren't good. You want me to just slap a bunch of songs on an album and say, here you go? I mean, I've been a fan of this woman for a long time. If she did, I would personally be disappointed because I know that's not her. So, I think that, I don't know. I just think it's some people are scared to grow with her.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. People are scared to grow with her. I think we've seen that time and time again, actually. I think like we've spoke about with the jazz, kind of the response to the jazz, I think people think of growth as maybe you go from your Just Dance and then you get your Poker Face and then you get your Bad Romance and it's a constant kind of upward. But I think what we've seen with Gaga is she doesn't just grow upwards, she grows in all directions. And it might not be all at the same time. It might be a bit sporadic and it might kind of go in this direction for a while and then it might go here, it might go over there. And I think you're so right. You have to, it's as soon as you try and kind of pin down a pattern in what she's doing, you've missed the point because she's not looking to kind of have that, okay, I think we see it in other artists. I won't name names, but you see some artists will release an album, it will be incredibly successful, and they think, well, how do I do something even bigger than what I just did? And I don't think she's looking to do the bigger thing than what she's just did. I think she's looking to do the next thing and the more evolved thing than what she's just did. I think something else interesting. I mean, I've spoken about Abracadabra a lot this year. As much as it is a callback to like her Bad Romance and her Judas and that kind of writing, it's not a song she could have made back then. It's a song she only could have made now because of where she's been since then. And I think that's what you're so right about, that people being scared to grow with her. I think you need to let her go on these journeys and these little side quests because that's what creates the artist.
Isn't it boring to just see the same sort of thing all the time? Like,
yeah.
I mean, yes, it's fun for a little bit, but then after a while, I want to see some evolution. I want to be able to look back at, like, this is going to be a controversial take, but The Fame is not my favorite album. And it will never be my favorite Gaga album because it feels like a starting point. A great starting point. A very strong starting point. I mean, the first 4 tracks alone. But
Yeah.
if The Fame Monster and Born This Way and Art Pop were diet versions of The Fame, I don't know if I'd still be here. I think that the thing that makes Gaga Gaga is her introspectiveness. I think to your point about, her looking forward to, being innovative and things like that, the reason why I feel like for me personally that comes natural is because I don't think she's really focused even on that point. I think that she's more focused on writing some of the best music that she can and finding out some of the, working with some of the best people that she can and, going to people that have these expertise. And she plants these seeds. You know, you got out of this EDM electronic world, and all of a sudden you start doing jazz with Tony and really starting to understand musicianship and longevity. You know what I mean? At that point, you know, she really hadn't had that, you know? And then you move from there into this singer songwriter. Now I'm going to be an actress. And, you know, it just all has this progression.
Yeah, I think people forget as well that like the Tony years, especially the cheek to cheek sort of early years, they saved her from a really, really dark place where people forget she could not be here. Like there's a universe out there where she went through those early years of her career and didn't make it out. And what saved her, we all saw it very publicly, but I think fans choose to not see it. We could be sat here talking today about a Lady Gaga that didn't make it beyond 2014. Like, truly.
There's a lot of weight to what she was talking about, that speech at the end of Art Rave in Paris. There was more nuance to that speech. It wasn't just I'll see you later. That was, for me, it felt like a promise to herself, an outward promise to herself and the fans that the clock is going to tick. I don't know how long for, but I'm going to make sure that that clock keeps going, and I will see you again. I promise. You know, it wasn't just Taylor, I'm coming home. You know, while that's very sweet and things like that, it was more about, you know, her sort of keeping herself accountable and realizing where she was at and realizing that, oh, on my own tour, I can do EDM songs and I can do my classics. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to go back and change into my little Jerry curl wig and a red jacket and sing Bang Bang in the middle of Paris. She has that power.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're so right. I think there does feel to be a bit of a split. And I hate sometimes talking about this because I just think, my God, how do I say this without sounding completely arrogant? But there does feel like a split between those of us who get it and those of us who don't. I think if you get it, everything we've just spoken about, people are probably listening along and like nodding their head and going, yeah, yeah. And then the people that don't get it, probably just skipping forward, waiting for us to talk about LGA.
No, literally. And you see that sometimes in the audiences too. And I don't think it's something that's happening on purpose. I think it's just I mean, you've got close to a 20-year career here. I mean, if you're just sort of, you know, coming into the fan base, you know, kind of like my boyfriend, he's told me so many times, like, wow, I didn't know about these things, but I remember these moments, you know, where we were thrust in the middle of them. You know, we were the ones online trying to defend art pop when nobody else would. We were the ones that were sharing, you know, all of the stuff when Judas was coming out on Easter weekend and, you know, all of those things. So you have, like you said, it's not just, you know, an upward thing. But yeah, it's more of, like you said, it goes out this way. And for somebody who is, you know, sort of, I would say post art pop, anyone who probably came in post art pop, I see a lot more of that, you know, trying to put her in the pop box, where you see, you know, longtime fans that are just kind of down for anything. They want new jazz and they love the rock elements of Mayhem and Born This Way. Joanne, even John Wayne. So it's, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you can learn.
Yeah, very that. I feel like what we're talking about in terms of her growth feels like, this is maybe a bit of a weird analogy. Okay, so you know when you learn a language, your brain actually grows and a part of your brain becomes that language part of your brain. So I learned Spanish like years ago, right? So when I learned Spanish, part of my brain became the Spanish part of my brain. And I feel like with each Gaga project, each thing she's doing is like the brain. And it's like kind of nourishing another area of that brain. And that's why kind of what I mentioned earlier with Abracadabra, like, yeah, she was making dark pop music back when she was doing The Fame Monster. The brain wasn't big enough until now to make Abracadabra because it hadn't experienced all of those other things. And I think what you're saying with like all these different projects and watching her growth go in different directions, I think you're so right. It's part of the journey. So whatever comes next, just know it's a product of an evolved brain and not a baby brain.
Right, exactly. I mean, for example, when Joanne came out and all of that was released and I saw the full package, right? The post of this is the album cover, this is the album title, it made sense. where we were at that point, it made so much sense because we've heard so much about Joanne. It had been a through line since album one. I mean, the poem that's in the front insert of the Fame, all the way up to, that being the prayer every night on tour. And then, it became sort of like this mythical sort of being that by the time we got to, This Is Joanne, it made sense. She had to go there. It couldn't have been any later and it couldn't have been any sooner.
Yeah, it felt like she absolutely couldn't move past not doing that. Like, I would say it's a similar kind of looking at Doja Cat's career, looking at Scarlet. It's not an album that the fans say is their favourite necessarily, but it's an absolutely necessary part of her artistry in order to create V, which I think is actually her best album of her discography. But she couldn't have done that. She's so good. She is so good.
So good.
One of the few newbies who I think is on par.
I will see her when she comes to America next year.
Yes. Yeah, I've got my tickets.
Yes.
But the way she talks about Scarlet, I feel like there is a similarity there with Joanne. I feel like, again, it's just a necessary part of the journey. As we've been talking about, kind of the journey isn't linear this way. It kind of goes in all directions. And I think there's a parallel there somewhere for sure. What's your favourite song on V?
Oh, I would have to say Amen. Yeah, that one's the one. It hit my brain in like a different, like you said, the different parts. It was just giving me like these like topical tingles. I don't know how else to describe it. And then that SNL performance where I really got to, see the visual with it. I'm also a big fan of Jealous Type. I think it's a strong single. I think it deserved more than what it got. And, to kind of tie the two together, Doja and Gaga, I think a lot of that sort of why people struggle with the whole, success is maybe not linear thing is because you have the internet, and the internet is such a big part of being a musician nowadays. And, having to see all of your achievements and everything you've done on the timeline all the time, especially for people like Doja, like Gaga, who are on the internet, you know what I mean? That aren't necessarily Beyonce-fied yet, as far as social media presence, that it can become daunting, and it becomes hard for people to understand that, okay, well, if my single isn't as good as Born This Way or Die With a Smile, well, then it's not a good single. Well, that's not necessarily true. Sometimes you need to dig into the mountain a little bit this way in order to understand and appreciate. I mean, we wouldn't have the love for art pop we had if people, weren't more willing to get into it. But it took however long, 10 years.
And we wouldn't have Die With a Smile if we didn't have Joanne, A Star Is Born. I really don't think we would.
No. I think that, people could say what they want about her collabs, but I think that music can't be made in a vacuum. Whether you're making, music as a solo artist or if you're making music as a group with a group of people. I think that I love collabs. I love the way that Gaga does them because she's not necessarily like I'll send my verse and you send yours. Like her and Ariana Grande were writing together for Rain On. And that's what makes the song so special because you have her sort of, you could tell Ariana Grande is all over that right. You know what I mean? Versus when you go into Ariana's verse, it also feels very much like Gaga and them trying to figure out how that goes together. Same thing with Die With the Smile. I mean, you can definitely tell, what Bruno brought to it, and then all of a sudden that idea was dead for him. He even said this. It was sort of put on the back burner for a long time, and that's where we get some of our best music. And she came in and did what she had to do, and now it's one of the biggest songs of the year.
If not all time.
Right. Exactly. Shallow who? Right.
Literally. I think it's incredible that kind of at this stage in her career, she's kind of having the biggest sales and records and numbers she's ever had with Die With a Smile, and then creating some of the best music she's ever made with Mayhem. Like, it's been a really special year to be a fan, I think. To be along this journey with her has been a blessing. Tour is obviously continuing next year into Japan and the US. We got quite a few new little bits and pieces from the Australia shows. Just to recap, we had the new Bad Romance outfit. We had Brooklyn Nights on the piano, as well as Hold My Hand, and then studio versions of Rain On Me and A Thousand Doves. What do we reckon for this final leg of the tour? Do we think that we're going to get a few more little tidbits of things? Do we think she's cooking up? I personally do, but I'd love to get your thoughts.
Look, I'm just going to say it, and now it's on record and on video. I need to hear Can't Stop the High at the Mayhem Ball before it ends. I need to hear Can't Stop the High at the Mayhem Ball before it ends. Because that
Mm-hmm.
song is so good. Oh, it's so
It's
good.
so good.
I can't like the fact that I thought she would have done it in Europe at least. You know what I mean? I was really looking forward to seeing like those GA pitch just really just going hard and like her and the musicians going hard and like I don't know. I'm missing it. I'm missing it really really bad.
Can't Stop the High is the stronger of the two bonus tracks for me. I definitely prefer it to Kill for Love. Kill for Love feels like a part two to kind of that segment of Drug Zombie Boy. It feels like a kind of, another one of those, whereas Can't Stop the High, yes, maybe reminiscent of Perfect Celebrity and Disease, but it feels like it brings something that Kill for Love doesn't already kind of have covered by other songs. So
And the placement of it as well within the record. I was just thinking about this 2 nights ago that I purposely waited to hear the bonus tracks because they were on the vinyl. So I waited and I went out release day and I got the vinyl for Target, the Kill for Love one. I loved it. I thought it was good. I had no idea what to expect though when I got this girl because let me tell you, I heard Perfect Celebrity and then I was like, all right, here we go, here it goes. And I just sat there like for literally the rest of the side, you know what I mean? It ends at such a point that then you have Vanish that comes right after and just smacks you. It's wow. I honestly, for me, that like track 1 through 5, that beats the art pop run. It does.
yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, and that's a high bar, and she did it.
She'll do it again though. That's the crazy part.
Mm.
She will do it again. She will find a way to gobsmack us again.
Oh yeah. And that's why, like, she's always had that energy, right? I remember, like, from 5'2", her talking about the Super Bowl, and she's like, everyone thinks they know what I'm gonna do, but they don't, because I'm gonna go over here and do something else.
Yeah.
You think you have me kind of sussed out, but you don't. And I think that's why she is the most exciting artist to be a fan of in our lifetime so far.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. She had obviously a new Bad Romance outfit for Australia. It's another iteration. We've had a couple of different Bad Romance looks now, the Art of Personal Chaos show. Do you have a favourite of the Bad Romance looks?
I'm trying to think. I really, really, really like the Coachella one, just because of like the wings up at the top and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also partial to the Frankenstein Hello Kitty wig that she was doing, right before she went over to Europe. Because I don't know if she brought that. Wait, yeah,
I
she
don't
did.
think so. Oh, did
No,
she? Because she changed to the box.
now I
When
gotta
did
look
she
in my
change to
pictures.
like the box wig?
I don't know. I'm a bad fan. I don't remember. I'm gonna look at my
Yeah.
pictures
At
now because
some point she changed to the box wig. Yeah.
I'm finding it. I'm finding it. Yeah. She had the little ears when I saw her. So that was
Yeah.
cute. I know many people didn't like that, but whatever. Cry about it.
I agree with you. I think the Coachella one was the strongest. I do like all of them, but I think the newest needs just finessing somewhere, I feel, just so it doesn't feel so kind of bottom heavy. I think there's a lot happening with the current look. All of them, there's a lot happening and it's great. But I think when she's got those massive monster claws with all of that fabric at the bottom, I love the claws. The claws have to stay, but all of that fabric at the bottom with it just feels like a lot. I feel like it needs just shaping or trimming or like snipping somewhere. I don't know, but still here for it. Still here for her, like bringing us little new looks here and there. I love that the wig has like a really big red stripe down the back. I think that's so cool. But yeah, the new headpiece with the wings just here.
Yeah.
Also, I really like
Uh-huh.
that. I think that's really cool.
I have a theory though, actually, about that.
Go
I
on.
think that the outfit, if you notice, it's gone from almost all white with bits of red blood, whatever, trying to hold herself together. And then as the show has gone on, we get different iterations of this outfit that feel more free to the point where, like you said, now she's got red in the hair and it's more full. And I think the mistress is taken. I think it's supposed to be a symbolic sort of like I am the mistress, but I'm also her. But we're not the same, but we are the same. that duality that she talks about in Mayhem.
I thought what was really interesting in the Zane Lowe interview as well was she described the mistress character as the egocentric, narcissistic part of herself. I love that, you know, we already knew this, but to hear Gaga put those exact words to it, I thought was so fascinating that, you know, these characters that she's telling the story of Mayhem with, they're not just kind of dreamed up versions of, you know, she dresses in red, so she's like the devil, and then she dresses in white, so she's like an angel. It's not that. It's actual parts of her personality that sometimes she doesn't really want to be a narcissistic bitch, but that is truly a part of herself that she has taken and made a character out of. So she's going to go on stage and do that every night. And I think, again, it's a commitment to her craft that I think on the surface maybe isn't appreciated the first time around until you sit with it and you really think about the show and you listen to the album and you watch the visuals, you watch the Abracadabra video. And as some of you have seen in my long analysis video of the cinematic universe of Gaga, like, it's a consistent story throughout. Like, these are characters that are battling, but as she's always told us all along, and I think is most obviously sort of brought to light in Chromatica with 911, her enemy is herself. I thought it was really great to hear that.
Yeah, definitely. And if you even think about the pacing of the show, right? I mean, she's spending the whole show trying to break away from the mistress, right? And again, talking about being put in these boxes. No, I'm not this. I'm going to try and be this. No, I'm not this. I'm going to try and be that. And you see her going through it the entire show, but there's always this thread back to the mistress. She comes back out at the end, Million Reasons, Shallow. She takes that journey with her, does vanish into you, and surrenders. She surrenders to the mistress at the end, right? And then where do we come back to? The mistress and that sort of energy, that narcissistic energy. You know, she's on a hospital bed now, being brought back to life. That narcissist is brought back to life at the end of the show. She ends with one of her biggest
Because monsters
songs.
never die. Because monsters never die. And that is that part of herself, whether we like it or not, is a monster.
Yep, exactly.
She's so smart. I love her.
She's just great. She's great.
10 out of 10. I would love to hear like someone sit down and do an interview with her just about the show, and I feel like she probably wouldn't, because I think she's definitely one of those artists that like to have her work quite sort of open to interpretation from people. But I would be really fascinated to just sit and listen to, kind of in her words rather than just through the music and the dance and the visuals, just her words, like what is the story she's telling with this show? What do all the little details mean that maybe we've missed? Because there is so much in this show that, you know, I saw the show a lot and I saw new details nearly every time I saw it. Like the last show, I noticed a couple of things, and like seeing it from the seats, I saw different things. Like I saw being further away, I noticed that the checkerboard during Poker Face, the audience is also lighting up in a checkerboard pattern with the sort of light up wristbands. It's not just kind of flashing red and white. They've actually patched out sections of the arena to also look like a checkerboard as well. So are we, the audience, part of the chessboard that is happening here with the story? There is so much you can read into with this show. I would be so fascinated to just sit and listen to all of those details from like her, from Paris, from Michael, whoever. Like I would just love to absorb that. And I don't think we ever would, because as I say, she does like to leave these things quite open for us, but I think that would be fascinating.
Yeah, I just want to just live in her brain for like a day. Just a day. That's all I need, you know, or to just sit down and talk about her creative processes, because the thing about Mayhem Ball as well that you see, it's different from any show that she's ever done, but there are a lot of through lines that we have seen before. Like the disease, perfect celebrity, that very much harkens me back to Chromatica Ball Alice, where she's strapped down, away from everyone, up in the air, suspended, larger than life. Again, that narcissistic part of herself, trying to bring herself back down into reality, but being, you know, taken away by the monsters of, you know, and taken away by the reality that she's creating. So if you look close enough through everything that she's ever done, it's always been there. I think that this is just the first time that she's been, you know, honest enough to say that she's the one causing herself some of that harm, you know?
I think you're so right. And I think, not to go back to this brain analogy that you've created, but as you say, like Chromatica, she was telling the story with the parts of the brain that were developed at the time then. And now with Mayhem, she's telling the story with an even more fully developed brain with what she's got now. She has all of this extra experience, more time, more perspective, more kind of opportunity to reflect and look back, more, more stability in her life as well. We're not in a pandemic anymore. She's engaged. Like, there is so much kind of that's changed since when she was making Chromatica to Mayhem. And that's why we're getting, these themes have been around from day one in her music and in her visuals, but it's just told with different perspective and different experience now. I'm so intrigued to see what's going to come next, because I can't really imagine a version of this story being told that is better than Mayhem, or that kind of illustrates it better than how she has with Mayhem. So I'm really intrigued to know actually what she's writing about at the minute. And her talking about Born This Way being like a reflection back on a certain time in her life makes me wonder, like, is she reflecting back to that time again, or another kind of time in her life that she hasn't explored with music yet? But yeah, I think whatever's going to come, I'm very, very interested to know what she's writing about.
Well, we've also seen too over this tour her being able to reconnect, well, with the whole era, being able to reconnect with so much of her past that maybe might feel abrasive or different. Again, people that have been here would know what I'm talking about. It's huge that in the year 2025, Lady Starlight is doing a House Labs ad, and she's there at the tour. And, you're down on Rivington Street talking about, semi-precious weapons and, all of these people who, when she was starting out, they were also very much a part of the Gaga ecosystem, right? And then as we went through Art Pop and Joanne and, she started being more locked away and bigger than life, those people started to move on with their lives and, do their own thing. Lady Starlight's over in Germany doing house music, and Tara Savello, she just got married, and, life is happening. But I'm noticing a lot with this era that she's able to sort of put a nice Band-Aid and I don't want to say repair, but, sort of put more attention and time into these relationships that she's missed, that, she hasn't had.
Yeah, for sure. I think there is every chance that the new music she's writing is in that kind of reflective looking back phase, in the same kind of vein as Born This Way. But what makes me intrigued are these rumours with The Weeknd, where he's at currently artistically, as far as I understand. So first of all, before we get into this, I do have to say, I always kind of joke I have a het side and a gay side, right? So the gay side adores Gaga and all the pop girls and everything. The het side, my most listened to artist, hands down, is The Weeknd. So like my Apple Music this year replay literally is like Gaga #1 and The Weeknd #2. And that's not surprising to me at all. Like, I really, really love The Weeknd. Adore his music, all of his music, not just kind of his pop stuff, but his really kind of cracked out, druggy, moody, sad, depressing stuff from the early days as well. All of it. I love it. I'm here for all of it. But where I understand that he is artistically right now is that he's Hurry Up Tomorrow was the end of The Weeknd as a persona, and any music being released kind of from here on out is under his real name, Abel. So, and this is also coming at the end of a 3-album trilogy he's just released, starting with After Hours, going into Dawn FM, and then ending with Hurry Up Tomorrow. All of that thematically being, there's some parallels there with, the story he's telling and the stories Gaga tells in her music. His story is definitely about kind of sin and purity and the idea of going to heaven, the idea of going to hell, the idea of like reckoning with what you've done in your life. Can you change your ways? Are you an evil person? Will you always be evil? Relying on vices. That theme has been a journey of this trilogy of albums that he's just come to the end of. I'm very intrigued. As I say, there's definitely parallels there between what he's singing about and what Gaga's singing about. So in terms of what the evolution is for both of them, they've both kind of just released projects that tell those stories. So what is the next chapter of those? I can't wait. I'd be really excited to know what producers they're working on for this. I think the Zane Lowe interview feels to me probably 80% confirmed something is coming with Gaga and Abel. Her reaction to it seemed, yeah, something's coming.
Girl, you do know. Don't play that.
Yeah, it definitely feels like something's happening. Yeah, something's happening there, I think. They've obviously both worked a lot with Gesaffelstein. Obviously, Gaga worked with him so much on Mayhem, but Abel's worked with him for years. They've done quite a few songs together as well. I would love to hear Mike Dean, who The Weeknd works with a lot on Gaga's stuff. My understanding is that Mike Dean kind of reimagined a lot of material used on the tour for The Weeknd, kind of bringing that all together and making it all sound new and fresh. And if that is the case, if I have got that right, then please let's get Mike Dean in the mix.
Oh, absolutely. I love his work too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really cool stuff. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this collaboration? Are you here for it? Are you hoping it's got a certain sound or certain theme? Do you have any theories? Like, let's dive and let's dish.
I'm just one of those fans. I'm like, just give me anything and I'll be happy. But I mean, we know this has been all over the timeline for years now, as even just a wish. So, I really have no idea what to expect because I mean, I'm such a casual listener of the weekend. I think he's interesting. I think that he is a good male contemporary for her to sort of bounce off of. I've heard, on the timeline, like it might be a ballad or things like that. And if it is, that would be great. I think sort of what you were talking about, how they have these sort of concurrent, similar paths, it could make for some really good pop music too. I think that trying to, again, put them in a box is sort of a fool's errand because you have, The
Mm,
Weeknd and then you have Gaga. And is it going to be The Weeknd? Is it going to be Abel? What type of artist is Abel, right? Abel
yeah.
might like a completely different genre than, what The Weeknd does, And I
Mm.
think that with him, from my own sort of outward perspective, that, he's sort of found this character and found a way to expand it, but it's all felt pretty within the universe, if that makes sense.
I definitely agree with that. I think one thing we can definitely say for certain is that they can both write incredible pop songs.
Hmm.
They're both great at the storytelling and the metaphor and whatever is coming. Gaga's very selective and careful with who she decides to collaborate with. She doesn't just kind of hop on, this person's hot right now, let's get something out. She's very, very kind of considered in her approach to collaborations, as much as Stan Twitter might say otherwise, that she's just kind of looking for a quick hit. I think we know, after years of her only collaborations really being with like men over the age of 70
Or
or
Beyonce.
Beyonce.
That was it. You just,
Yeah. You're either a music legend who is balding or you're a music legend who is Beyonce, and they're the only people
yeah.
I work with.
Oh, and
Yeah.
Flow Rider.
She's
We'll
very
we'll throw
careful.
him in.
Yeah. She's very careful with who she works with. And I think, Bruno Mars felt like a pop artist who was on her level to collaborate with. He felt like a peer because, it's not just in terms of commercial success, but, he's experimented a lot with genre and he understands music. And I think she really likes people who are like her, students of music. You can see that in the way Bruno Mars kind of dabbled with sort of that 70s sort of funk with Silk Sonic, as well as writing like brilliant pop hits and his work with Mark Ronson. Like there is so much. There's a wealth of music sort of knowledge there. And the same with Ariana. If you've ever seen sort of like the videos of her like vocal producing herself, you'll know that again, she is somebody else who just has a real appreciation for the craft, not just for like, I'm going to go and make like a cute little single about going shopping and buying rings for my friends. No, she's like
Right.
actually really, really into that, like building the layers of vocals and the production and everything. And I think that's also how Gaga works. And I think she's been more open about that on Mayhem, is like how she's become very interested in like producing and the production. I think The Weeknd is somebody else who is, I would say, a peer and who is on par with Gaga in terms of being a student of music, having that versatility and having that respect for the craft, which I think is really her sort of, what's the word, like yardstick or like criteria for if she'll work for somebody or not.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's funny that you talk about Die with a Smile too, because I actually, when that came out or when it was announced to come out, that was one I never really expected. I never really expected her to collaborate with Bruno because of the things like Silk Sonic and 24 Karat Magic. I mean, for a while, especially around the 24 Karat Magic era, I mean, he was very commercial. And I mean, 2016, at the same time, you've got him with 24 Karat Magic. Here she is with Joanne, way on the opposite side of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to sort of see those two minds come together, I should have known. It made perfect sense when I heard it. And that's kind of how I feel about this potential Weeknd collaboration because it's never been anything that's been on my radar personally. But I will be very interested to see what she's really good about. Like, either if she's invited to step onto a song or if she's collaborating, she's very good about making sure that it feels right for both. I mean, we talked about this a little bit before with Rain on Me, right? Where it's not just oh, well, this is a Bruno Mars song and then, Gaga just hopped onto it. No, you can definitely feel how it could easily be on one of his albums and it could easily be on Mayhem or, whatever, insert the song.
Absolutely. She also kind of said in her Zane Lowe interview that 2026 new music isn't out of the question. She didn't say or kind of hint that there's definitely something coming. I think when she says that, I think she's referring to a full album rather than kind of, we know she's going to be doing musical projects of sorts because she literally can't help herself, whether it's like, a movie soundtrack or a, tribute performance or something. She'll be doing something. But I always feel kind of in two minds talking about this stuff, and I'm sure you feel the same in terms of what's next for Gaga, because we know sort of the elephant in the room is that time's ticking. Babe wants a family and she deserves that time off to, really have that fulfillment in her personal life. At the same time, that's happening at a time where she seems to be so creatively switched on and inspired. I do wonder what 2026 post-tour looks like for Gaga and for us. Do we think there's any other kind of potential avenues we might see her kind of move into once the tour ends, or even while she's still touring? Because tour hasn't stopped her from being busy this year. So do we have any kind of predictions for 2026 Gaga projects?
I definitely think the first thing that needs to happen is she needs to take the longest nap ever because she's worked so hard. But we've talked about this whole episode about how she's been able to wear all these different hats all at once. And I think that she's finally figured out that you can have it all if you really want. You know what I mean? You can put out an album and, get married and, work on a movie project and also, settle down. I think that she's enjoying rewriting the rules. And as far as predictions for next year, like you said, I don't think that she's going to go away or anything like that. I don't think that we're going to get another tour within the next, couple years or so. But I definitely think that we're going to see more music. I don't think her presence is going away because she's worked too hard this year to just, all right, here I am, bye. It's sort of like what Beyonce has done with the 3-act project, but before that, we hadn't really seen her in like a studio sense since 2018. So I think that she's going to figure out this life, but also, giving to the fans and giving to herself without, depleting.
That's really true. At the same time, it definitely, I know we touched on this at the beginning, it definitely feels like we are watching a Grammy campaign unfold before our eyes at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Grammys 2026, I know she has Japan shows near the date, but it is possible, it's not impossible for her to attend the Grammys. What's your feeling? Do you think she'll be there to kind of do a bit of a victory lap and celebrate Mayhem and Harlequin, or do you think she'll kind of just carry on with the tour?
With how hard the campaign is going right now, I think that she's going to be there, absolutely. I personally think if she really wanted to add fuel to the fire, Make Vanish Into You a single right now. That's got your Grammy. That one's got your Grammys right there. I'm telling you what, if she started off 2026 with sending that song to radio, it'll be the next Die with a Smile. That was the first thing I thought when Mayhem came out and I heard that song. I said, oh, this song is going to be on the radio forever, on top of all of the stuff that you've got going on with Harlequin and Mayhem. And then you've got, the tour going on as well. And you've got everyone saying, 2025 has been the year of Gaga. I think it would be foolish for her not to go, apart from the looks and everything else like that. Like, she's worked for this. She's got to go.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think she's there. Do you think the fashion is going to lean more Mayhem or more Harlequin? Do you think we're going to get a Harlequin kind of look?
Ooh, well, that would be interesting. To be honest, I don't know, because with how quick she's moving on everything, I could definitely see it being one of those things where, she's stepping into maybe the next sort of project, or we get another sort of Mayhem-esque look that sort of wraps up the era. Yeah, I don't know. I know she's going to serve whatever it is.
Yeah. It's so funny you mention Vanish Into You being a single. It feels like a while back now there were rumours of a new music video and a new single, the final one from Mayhem, and it seemed the general consensus was between Vanish Into You and Garden of Eden. I did have a source come to me and say that there was another music video, but they didn't have more information. But the same source that came to me with that was very accurate with the information they gave me about the VMAs. So that's all the tea I have. but it would be interesting. I think we've obviously seen her kind of keep the Harlequin special under wraps and waiting for the right moment to release that. That feels very well planned out to me strategically to wait until now to release the Harlequin special just in time for like the Grammy campaign. I do wonder, has she got something else like waiting to be dropped, perhaps?
I could definitely see that for sure. I think that this era has been so full of surprises and so full of just giving that she's wanting to go all out. I think that I don't want to say she's not been proud of her other projects, but this is the first time where it's been critically recepted and she feels great about it and the fans, all around are just, why would you not want to ride that, all the way to the Grammys? And I think that if she keeps going the way she is, like I know people have said that we don't know when she's going to drop the Harlequin special and things like that. Just give it time. Let it play out, We're coming into the Christmas season. People are going to be off work and enjoying the holidays with their families over the next couple weeks. And then at the end of the month, I mean, the Grammys are here. So I expect that to drop within maybe before the end of the year. My gut tells me that's like a 40% chance, but it'll definitely be here within the next couple weeks for sure.
You reckon?
I think. I really do. I know she hasn't said too much about her release date, but from friends of mine that got to go to the screening the other day, she very heavily emphasized, Christmas and Christmas time and Christmas release without saying any type of date. But it would make sense. I mean, you're going to have most of your big stuff for streaming, as far as like video content, is during the holidays. You get a lot of like movies and TV shows that drop over the holidays because people are home. So yeah, I definitely could see that happening.
Harlequin also feels like, aside from obviously a very Gaga Thanksgiving, for those of you who remember that, that's a big throwback. Aside from that, feels like the closest thing we've gotten maybe to a Christmas album, actually. So it does feel fitting
to see her do a holiday album. I mean, why she never did one with Tony, that I don't get. Maybe it was just pinning the two of them down because they had that Barnes & Noble commercial that aired for like 3 or 4 years back to back, here in America at least.
They also did Winter Wonderland, didn't they? Like just a standalone single. But you're right, like a full album would have been delicious.
Yes, that, and you mentioned Gaga Thanksgiving. I need that EP on vinyl. I need that because that would just, wouldn't that eat? Oh, that would be good. If anyone's listening, Bobby, anybody,
Yeah.
UMG, Interscope.
Yeah. Stranger things have happened.
Right? Look, I'm telling you what.
The people have said what they want. It's your job to give us it. I think it's so funny that we've just kind of organically started talking about a very Gaga Thanksgiving because you mentioned earlier sort of her early jazz, Orange Coloured Sky. I think that was one of the first times she performed it. I think the first might have been the Born This Way era. I think the first time she performed it might have been at Radio 1's Big Weekend during the Born This Way era. That was that concert she did with the black and blonde wig where she came out, she had the big pregnancy belly. Orange Coloured Sky was definitely one of the first early performances of it, and she performed that quite a lot. But my God, seeing the artist she is now compared to then, doesn't that make you a bit emotional thinking back?
It really does, because I mean, I was just trying to scan my brain when she did it here in America, and I believe, I could be getting this wrong, so hopefully someone in your comment section will like clear it up for me, but I think she did it for an inaugural presidential something here in America. And yeah, I just remember the thing that I really enjoyed about that time and about that era and about what I enjoy about her and Ariana Grande and Doja Cat and so many of the people that we've talked about today is artists that will say, this is my favorite genre of music, let me teach you, right? I mean, I was 10 or 11 when The Fame came out, so Orange Color Sky would have been around, I would have been like 14. Yeah, 14, 15. And, that was my really big first exposure to jazz and Cheek to Cheek and, those sort of like historical elements that she was educating fans about that a lot of people ignored because they tried to put her in the art pop box and they didn't understand, It's so cool. It's so cool to see, her even still to talk about in the Rolling Stone interview, Ella Fitzgerald and her charts and, I just eat all that stuff up. I love it. I really do.
What I loved about that Rolling Stone interview, kind of tying pieces together that like we already knew as fans, but just to see her kind of make those connections as well was really fun. I mean, you already mentioned Semi-Precious Weapons. That was one. Obviously, we know sort of our first introduction to them as a fan base would have been the Monster Ball when they opened for her. But another one in there that I thought was really fun was her calling out Tear You Apart by She Wants Revenge, because obviously we know that song was her introduction to her character in American Horror Story.
Yep. I just thought about one right now. The Scissor Sisters, if you remember that, to really, really take it back. You know, those openers from the Monster Ball and Madian from when he was opening the Born This Way Ball. And it's so cool to see those things still sort of sticking with her and not being elements that were just kind of,
Mm.
they were part of my past and I've thrown them off to the side. So
You're so right. It's, again, not to keep going back to this, I sound crazy now, but it's all parts of the brain.
it really, no, it really is. It really, really is.
I really loved those interviews she did. I think it's always nice to just see her kind of get to go on tangents and things and see the way her mind works and kind of, things that have impacted her. I thought, I can't remember the name of the song, but there was one that she mentioned, sort of the title of it being sort of like trying to say In the Garden of Eden, but it was kind of like a nonsensical Garden of Eden, that was it. Hearing how that kind of impacted her. And then you think, oh my God, so many of your songs are kind of made up of that sort of half words, half kind of musical sound rather than fully formed words. Like, that's crazy to kind of tie all of those things back to you finding out about this song when you were however old, like seeing pieces of the puzzle for us that we didn't know about. I love those interviews.
I'm thinking of Shiza. I mean, that gobsmacks me every time. Who comes up with that? Who?
Yeah.
Because, like, that's crazy. That's actually crazy.
Part of the Zane Lowe interview as well, very quickly, while we're talking about kind of respect for the craft, Gaga did mention sort of AI in music. Zane Lowe kind of asked her about it, and I don't think she kind of directly spoke on sort of AI specifically, but she did speak a lot about kind of having respect for the craft and having respect for sort of the learning and the physically doing rather than just kind of having stuff generated. I feel like so much of that as well is being on tour, right? Like that's part of what's creatively inspiring her right now is being able to kind of perform those songs with real musicians, her band, having them on stage with her. I feel like that's all part of the process. I think that is probably a large part of what's informing LG8, dare we start talking about that. Do you have any kind of thoughts on AI in music? Do you have a hope for like Gaga having a stance on it? Do you think that sort of the music that's going to come out in 2026 is going to be kind of vastly different in any way because of AI?
Well, thank you for asking that question because I will try and make my points concise. I have feelings about AI. As a musician myself, it's something that I've been honestly worried about for a long time just because you see it just popping up and so many different areas besides music. There are people that I know in my own personal life who work on music and work in theater and things like that that are using AI to help write full-on shows. And it's concerning. It doesn't take a genius to sit in here and, write a prompt for what you want, right? You can ask ChatGPT anything. If I ask my phone right now to make a art pop cover that was all kittens, it could do it. And, things like that. And I think that Zayn and Gaga, they both talked about the soulless part of it. And I don't know. I just think that things like AI, they take away the creative process and the introspective process that we like so much about musicians. We as a human race have loved to watch and experience theater and experience other people's experiences. How much of that can you really have if it's all manufactured and curated for you? And I think that for people who are starting to try to get into music or that make music in this day and age have a hard time with that because we see the finished products. We see the Gagas and the Doja Cats and the Weeknds and everything is polished. But what we don't realize is that that's not all done by a machine. There's an entire team of people from inside the studio to to the marketing, to all of that does that work for us. I mean, these things are tangible, right? They're not something, and I don't know, maybe part of the reason why I feel this way about it too is because, you look at Gaga's talked about this before. It was called AI, you know what I mean? Enigma was literally, her being transported into this space age realm where things were polished and cleaned and abnormal, right? And being taken over by that. So I don't know. I think that until we see a handle on it, I don't think it's going to get any better. But I think she's right. Being a human is not going to go out of style because, especially here in America right now, we're morally low. The world is morally low. And, we are craving human connection more than probably we even did before the pandemic. So I don't think it's going to go out of style anytime soon.
I think one important thing to remember as well is that AI learns from existing content, right? So in order to get to a point where it's releasing music that's good enough, it's had to learn from music that was good enough made the old-fashioned way. And if we're not kind of learning the craft and there's not more artists investing into the craft of it, then music doesn't evolve in any way because AI will only learn from the existing music, which is stagnant, and the new music which is put out, which is AI generated. So without kind of that new craft and that dedication to learning and to the artistry, we're left with quite stagnant kind of music output. And I think there's definitely like fun elements, right? Like getting to hear Ariana Grande cover Abracadabra because of AI. And even the Weeknd one you mentioned with The Beast, like getting to hear those kinds of things that we probably wouldn't have heard otherwise. There's fun elements to it, but like that's not moving artistry and music along in any way. It's stagnant because it's just kind of rinsing and repeating from what is already existing out there. I think you're so right. I think there's got to be a respect for the craft. And I think the sentiment that you share, the one that Zane Lowe and Gaga share, are probably pretty accurate in terms of like how important it is to respect the craft and what's needed. I think AI in art generally is just a really interesting one. It's a really tricky one. I think for businesses, they look at it as, why am I not using this? Because it could save me so much money and it's taking, all of the boring shit we don't want to do. And I can do that in minutes and spend more time doing other stuff. But when it comes to art, I think I learned quite early on when I was in school, art sometimes is about, creating something new. If I do a painting of something and I say, this is art, that's my artwork. But sometimes artwork is actually just about the craft of doing something. So if I made a sculpture, the art isn't necessarily the end result of the sculpture. The art in it is all the time it took to sculpt it and to sand it and to finish it. And, the process becomes
what paint you
the artwork.
used and all of that. You know what I mean? Art is supposed to be reflective of what we've got going on in our society. And part of me believes that, that's part of the reason why AI has become so popular is because we have gotten so used to becoming stale and fast and we need it now. I'll use Beyonce again as an example. Everyone has said since 2022, we need the visuals now. We need the visuals now. We need the visuals now. Let it breathe. It's okay to let it breathe. There's art in the breath. If you look at a piece of sheet music, not every measure is going to have a little note in there. There's going to be rest. Mm-hmm. Because art is a breathable thing. It's life. It imitates life. And we don't spend every moment of every single day talking and communicating and moving on to the next thing without getting exhausted. You have to have time for those things to rest.
Mm-hmm. That's such a beautiful way to look at it and articulate it, I think. Thank you for that.
Of course.
Before we wrap up, obviously, Grammys next year is probably the biggest thing Little Monsters, at least, will be looking forward to, as well as the tour continuing. I love that Gaga sort of mentioned the Grammys next year being there for both Mayhem and Harlequin. They're both completely different projects, but both grounded in chaos. Do you have anything else before we wrap up that you want to talk about or share, or maybe like a memory from the shows this year that has really kind of stuck with you?
First of all, like you said, this year has it's been such a great year to be a little monster. When I look back at not just like the things that I've gotten to experience with her and because of her this year, I think about like the output of my friends and I think about you and of my other friends on the timeline. I have gotten to interact with Gaga more this year than I have in the close to 20 years I've been a fan. I mean, my highlight this year was her being able to take my letter and my flowers and, having a moment during Vanish Into You where we literally just looked at each other and we're just singing the music. And I was so happy that she got to talk about that a little bit during the Zane Lowe interview about like watching fans go up for the new record because it is that great. I think that she's going to sweep with Mayhem. I think that Harlequin has got that Grammy in the bag. I'm just excited to celebrate. That's the best way to describe it. I'm excited to celebrate with her. So
I agree with you. I don't think she's going home empty-handed from the Grammys, and I think she's definitely going to move heaven and earth to actually be there in person to do her little victory lap because, as you say, this year has just been one for the books for us, I think. And for the gay community as well, so much going on politically, kind of working against us. And yet, you have Lady Gaga here in 2025 still making music, a queer icon, and still very blatantly paying homage to the people that inspire her the most, which is the gay community. She's going to be there and she's going to take the Grammys home and she's going to thank us like she always does.
I can't wait. I can't wait. And I'll be full tears and a mess in front of the TV. So
truly. Album of the year, the big categories, what do we think this year? She's never done it before. Do we think a big category win is on the books?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, again, like the way people are talking about this record, it's not within the top 10 or even the top 5 of any list I've seen. And as a fan, well, not as a fan, unbiased, listening to that album, it is so strong from beginning to end. I mean, I know people talk about, Blade of Grass's Skip and The Beast. We talked a little bit about, jokingly, but like I've had time to sit with that album, right? When I first heard that album, there was no skipping The Beast. There was no skipping Blade of Grass. I mean, I remember, slow dancing with my boyfriend when we got our first apartment together this year to Blade of Grass. So, like, it's going to take it. I would be so surprised if I saw anything else take it because it's been so successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Before we go, I know you mentioned obviously Happy Mistake and you mentioned Can't Stop the High. Wish list 2026. Gaga's doing piano songs, surprise songs she can pull from any album, any project. What do you want to hear at the piano? And you can only pick one.
Oh my gosh. All right. Hold on.
I should have prepared you for this question. I should have given you a heads up.
No, it's totally okay because I'm like, what have I heard? Speechless, actually. So jealous of every. I know you got that one, didn't you? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had mentioned that in my letter to her, and it was then really weird to see like a week or two later for it to be added. So I don't know if I had anything to do with that, but you're welcome.
Maybe. Maybe.
Yeah, no, that's my first one. I'm so partial to that one. It was the first song like I ever learned to play piano of hers. It was the first one that I had like really just been like, wow, she's not just this, pop avant-garde woman. I mean, she has a heart. And then to hear what the song is about, it relates so closely to my life that you'd have to carry me out of there if I heard that because there would be no way. So
yeah, an excellent pick, I have to say.
Yeah, thanks.
For me, I think, she's kind of probably going to dip back into the Fame, maybe carry on dipping back into Chromatica. If it's Chromatica, I've said from day one, I'm a Replay stan. I also love Alice. I think Alice particularly would hit pretty hard on piano. That would be incredible. But also Justice for Sign from Above. We need her to have her moment. Again,
yes.
Appreciation for like potentially the most batshit crazy song she's ever made. What do you mean you made a song about the theory of the world being created by a sound wave? Like, are you okay? Like, love her, need to hear her. So if it's Chromatica.
I was just going to say, to quickly tie it into some of our points, that song being about her world, you know what I mean? It's sort of a precursor to Mayhem about when she was young, she used to feel immortal and that she could do all of these things. And at that point in her life, realizing that she's not that person anymore. So her world being created by a sound wave absolutely makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's so crazy that it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for Chromatica, those would be my predictions. The Fame, I would love to hear. I mean, one of my favourite performances from the Fame era was when she did Paparazzi on piano for that radio station. I would say the Mayhem version of Paparazzi is actually perfect. So I would divert to when she similarly did AA on piano for a French TV show. That would be...
Yeah. Oh, that would be good.
That would be bliss.
Oh, I'd love that. I haven't heard that song in forever. I'm going to go listen to that after we get off.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really, really good one. I think also if we're kind of, she's feeling quite reflective at the minute and where she was and where she is now, I feel like Paper Gangster could be a fun one for piano.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
That could be quite interesting. However, I do have to say the Fame title track is so on the nose of where she was in her career and her headspace at that time. I would love to hear 2026 Gaga dip back into the Fame title track and see kind of, I wonder if she'd change any of the lyrics or kind of, put emphasis on anything specifically. I would love to kind of get her perspective on that song for today. So those are some thoughts and predictions. But if we're going any project, any album, yours was Speechless. For me, I think it will have to be Art Pop title track or So Happy I Could Die.
I didn't think about Art Pop title track. I should have said that because that's great. What was it, Jimmy Fallon when she did it was so good. So good, so good.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, those would be my picks for piano surprise songs.
They're all great, though. I honestly would have never thought of the Fame. That would be very interesting to see the introspectiveness, to see where she's gone. Do you think she's going to keep Summer Boy, though, in 2026? Because it's not the summer anymore.
No, it's not the summer. Part of me thinks she will, just because I think if she was going to switch it out, she probably would have done it by now. But at the same time, I do get the sense from like what she's said in interviews and stuff. She has got some downtime now over Christmas, but we know she's still going to be rehearsing and still going to be thinking of the show constantly, even while she's on break. So a change like that isn't out of the question. I definitely think she's at least rehearsing some new songs to play at the piano that she hasn't performed yet, because as I say, like that's just how she works. In terms of Summer Boy, I know you would love to see it replaced with Can't Stop the High.
Perfect
I think that
spot.
would be a great little moment. Yeah, absolutely.
With that red light. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be perfect. I don't know. I have a feeling she'll keep it, but I would prefer, I think she's landed Summer Boy, especially if she's already toured the US and the US audience has seen it already. Would be cool to kind of switch it at this point. Yeah.
I'm hoping to get my tickets for Minnesota. So I don't know. Maybe I'll see a little something before, before the tour ends again.
Yeah. I think you'll definitely have some new little bits and pieces, whether it's, wigs, outfits, songs.
Yeah,
there'll be
sure.
some details that she's changing. The show is evolving as it goes on, maybe not to the extent of previous tours, but there's definitely kind of development happening as it goes along for sure. So you'll have something new to look at, I'm sure.
I'm almost sure because it is Minnesota, and Michael, I'm sure she'll probably do Blade of Grass there. That'll probably be done there. But
she's only performed that like once or twice, right? At the early Mayhem shows. But
Mexico City? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that would be very, very appropriate, very full circle moment for her.
Yeah. Oh, I would love that.
Honestly. Right, Colton, it's been amazing to chat with you. As always, these podcast episodes, I kind of say in my head, yeah, I'll do this for like an hour, and then we end up talking and it goes way over that. So thank you for sticking here with me. It's been really lovely to talk to you and catch up and get your thoughts about everything. I think, I really appreciate you sharing your perspective on everything we talked about. I think you've worded a lot of things I was feeling and articulated it beautifully in ways that I wasn't able to at times. So thank you for that. And yeah, 2026, I think is going to be a great time for us. And I'm jealous that you get to see the show again.
Yes, I'm hoping. Yes, thank you for having me.
Yes.
This has been so much fun. I've been, keeping up with all the episodes and watching everyone come on. So you're doing fabulous work. I'm just so honored to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you. You've been a brilliant guest, and I'm manifesting for you for those tickets. It will happen. It has to happen.
It will. It will. I'll be there.
It will. You will. Absolutely. And if it doesn't, we'll crowdfund, we'll do something, we'll pull some tricks.
Something.
We'll work
I
it
will
out.
be there. Right.
Fabulous. Well, everybody watching, thank you so much. Best wishes and kisses to all of you. Have a lovely Christmas, lovely holidays, Happy New Year, and I hope all your dreams come true in the new year. Thank you for making my year so amazing. It's been surreal this year. Best wishes to all of you and lots and lots of kisses.